Now right here, this is the electrical, your heart spontaneously depolarizes from whatever your heart rate is right now. That's how many times it does it per minute. It spontaneously depolarizes. It's like magic tissue. The SA node, the sinoatrial node. A pacemaker is where this is replaced by an artificial thing that stimulates your heart. That's a pacemaker. And if AFib gets bad enough, they can, and Lombardo, I was asking about pacemaker. Mine's no problem with that. But he said, yeah, people with pacemakers sometimes, many times a person with a pacemaker can do as much as they ever could. Jog, do everything they could do. I mean, it just takes over, it makes everything go smoothly. I don't want one of those, but he said, it's not the worst thing in the world. It can be fine, it can be good. So we talked about that. I like to ask these guys questions. Because I told you, if I'd gone into medicine, I'd have gone into cardiology. I know I would have. All right, now right here, everybody, and be aware of this. The sinus venosus gives part of the coronary sinus and the SA node, sinoatrial node. All right, so there's okay, let's go over this. Truncus arteriosus, pulmonary trunk, ascending aorta, bulbus cordis, right ventricle, left ventricle. All right, and then those things, the atrium, part of the right atrium and all of the left, and then down there the sinus venosus, part of the right ventricle, the SA node, and the now y'all listen. Let me make sure you understand this. It's cold. All right, all right, y'all make sure you understand this. The coronary arteries carry blood to the heart muscle. The arteries, veins pick up blood in the heart muscle itself. Now all the veins, there's a middle cardiac, there's a great cardiac, there's a right cardiac. These are veins. They're in the muscle, they're not out in the body, they're in the heart itself. These veins all drain blood into an area called the coronary sinus. The coronary sinus, through the Thiebason valve it's called, the coronary sinus dumps the blood into the right atrium. In other words, y'all, blood from our body, up here, down below, and up here, and also from the heart muscle itself, all that blood, venous blood, empties into the right atrium. All of it goes into the right atrium. So that's where the word coronary sinus comes from. The coronary sinus collects venous blood from the heart muscle itself, if you're wondering. The coronary sinus collects blood from the heart muscle itself. All right, now coming on with this, like this, so there's a little bit of that. Be sure and look at that. Now this thing, what it is, I just mentioned this to you. This heart tube forms a U shape, then it goes through gyrations, and it becomes a four-chambered thing. So I just have right here, it goes through, bulbous card and so forth. The U take faster and so forth, results in S shape, and then it develops. I'm not going to ask you that, but it does. It goes through, and you can look at a picture in your book. In fact, I have one up here. There it is. That's kind of what I've been talking about. All right, see, this is what we've been going over. They didn't start with the cards here. They start with the endocardial tubes. The primitive heart tube is where it really fuses, more like that. There's the bulbus cordis. There's truncus arteriosus, bulbus cordis, ventricle, atrium, sinus venosus. And then it goes through all these gyrations, which it forms like that. That's out of your book by Totoro. That's out of Totoro's book there. That is out of his deal right there. So that's development of the heart, and if you just go look at it, this kind of shows you now. Now, I like to do this. By the 7th week, an interatrial septum. We can't see the interatrial septum. You can see the interventricular septum. You can see the interventricular septum. We can't see the interatrial septum, but we can see the interventricular. All right? And there's a foramen, we're going to talk about this now. There's a foramen ovale in a fetal heart. Now, listen carefully. These is important. In a fetal heart, there's a hole between the right atrium and the left atrium. It's called the foramen ovale because the fetus is not breathing air. The lungs are not functioning, but the lung tissue needs blood. Okay? So the lungs don't oxygenate blood in a fetus. So most of the blood bypasses the lungs in a fetus. They bypass because the blood goes into the right atrium, right ventricle. Then rather than going to the lungs, some of it does, But most of it goes from the right ventricle to the left ventricle. You follow? I'm sorry, I went back up. Comes in the right atrium, apologize, comes in the right atrium, and rather than most of it going to the right ventricle, most of it goes in an opening between the right atrium and the left atrium. Follow me that time? The right atrium and the left atrium. That's called the foramen ovale. Sometimes babies are born with that open. That's one of the causes of a blue baby. One. And it has to be repaired. Now, there is a fossa ovalis in me and you. There's a fossa ovalis. That's a scar tissue between the right atrium and the left atrium. Fossa ovalis. All right here. The foramen ovale is between them. And then notice right here. The interventricular septum divides the ventricle into right and left. I might ask you that on the test, on one of those big old cow hearts. The interventricular septum. All right, the great veins form from the venous end of the primitive heart. That'd be the truncus arteriole, the great veins. They just form from the venous end of the primitive heart. No problem with that. Clinical considerations right here. All right, and you know, clinical considerations. All right, this one you probably never have. Coarctation of the aorta. Now these, okay, if some of you have had children, if a child is born with it, what do they call that? Born with? What's it known? Come on, y'all. What? Congenital. Somebody else said that too. Congenital. Congenital. And of course, the term congenital defect. That's congenital. Born with. All right. So right here, wait a minute. Coarctation of the aorta. Okay. In this case, the aortic lumen is narrowed. What is the lumen? Now I'll show you pictures of all these in a minute. I'm going to show you pictures of all these congenital defects. It's very narrowed, and what they have to do with it, they have to go in there and maybe dissect it, cut it, and reattach it. Get rid of that narrowed area. I don't think they can stent it. I think it's just constricted so bad. All right. Patent ductus arteriosus. Okay, let me show you what that means. Patent ductus arteriosus, or patent, some people say. All right, here's what that means. All right, here's the heart. Look at this. Here's the heart. All right, here we go. All right, now, Shasta, in a baby, in a fetus, here's the superior and inferior. Now, what did I say this was? The hole between the right atrium and the left atrium. What did I say it was? Foramen ovale, correct. Here's right atrium, right atrium, right RTV, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle, like this. All right, now follow me. All right, now what comes out of the left ventricle? What comes out of the left ventricle? And it has the brachiocephalic going off, the common parotids, and so forth. Aorta. Okay, that's the aorta. That's AO. A-O-R-T-A. All right, now then, what comes out of the right ventricle? Pulmonary trunk. Look, guys and girls, look. Pulmonary, this is the pulmonary. We'll just say pulmonary artery. All right, now look, follow me. Now, patent, some people say patent, some people say patent, ductus arteriosus. Look, there are two ways in a fetus, or I mean, not patent, but ductus arteriosus. Now, patent means it didn't do what it's supposed to do. There are two ways in a fetus that blood bypasses the lungs. One is the foramen ovale. One is the foramen ovale, right between the atria. Two is when the fetus is developing, there's a side track. We were talking about the railroad station a while ago. The railroad stations there's a side track where the trains would move off to the side. Okay, the side track, this thing right here is called the DA. You use that to signify other things. But DA, the ductus arteriosus. That is the ductus arteriosus. That has to close, and it does seal off at birth. Once the baby starts breathing, and I don't know really all the whys, pressure, I don't really know all the whys and hows and all the intricacies of exactly why this stuff, mainly blood, I don't know all the information of that, but it's supposed to close, it does close off. Me and you is closed, or you wouldn't be sitting there.